Hello and welcome to another very nice knit stream. This Tuesday I've got some things off the needles. I've got some socks I finished this week, and I think 4 or 5 shawls. You'll see how I managed to do 5 in a weekend soon. I'm going to be doing some work on the Arabesque Knittalong, building the stranded knitting triangles. I've learnt a new technique for doing the pull 2 together through the back loop, which is awkward, so a new technique which might be a bit easier for some people. I've got some other tips for the knit-along people. Some people are finding it difficult to read charts. I've got a few tips on how I read charts, and I'm also working on another shawl for my Etsy shop, which is the pattern is called Helsinki, and it's another one from Free Spirit Shawl. So I'll be going over that, and that's I'm at a stage where I need to pick up stitches. So I know there's some things in the knit along in Arabesque which you can do pick up stitches. So that's also relevant to that if you want to stick around for that. And then if I get time, I'll do some finishing at the end and do some ends weaving in. So if you join me at the end for doing some boring finishing work, then yeah, if you want to get your own sewing out or ends weaving in, then feel free to join me at that point. Okay. Ooh, I've got my nice new setup. I've got a little blocking mat here just to remind me to keep my hands where the camera is pointing. Hopefully that should be a bit okay. Right, off the needles. These are my socks that I've finished. Obviously haven't done, we've woven in the end, so they're not really finished, but they are off the needles. So these are plain socks, but the special thing for these is I actually did them all as one big tube. So I knit kind of like one tube like that, and then I cut them in half and unravelled that, put them back in the needles. I put the cuffs on and I put the toes on, and then I did what's called an afterthought heel. So basically you put the sock back on the needles, kind of halfway up, and knit between, unravel it, so you've got a hole where the heel should go, and then you basically knit. It's another toe basically, and then hopefully that's in the right place. It's not in the right place, as it turns out, for my foot. It's actually, I have got small feet, but they're not that small, so the kind of the point of the heel comes right underneath my heel, where it should kind of be on the turn, where your kind of heel comes back up to your foot. So what I might do, I might just cope with it, or what I might do is unravel the heel. So I can't change where the hole is without kind of sewing that back up and making another hole. But what I might do is I might unravel the heel and do a bit more knitting just to kind of make that heel a bit bigger, and see if that works. So it's very experimental. This is yarn. This is a lovely yarn actually. I got this in when we were on holiday in Swaledale in the Yorkshire Dales in the UK. You weren't sure where I am, and I got it thinking I'd probably make a shawl with it because obviously I like shawls. But then it was in a skein and I wound it onto a ball, and I realised that it was more flex rather than stripes or a colour change. So I thought any shawl I did, unless it was quite a plain shawl, the colours would just get lost in it and it just kind of look a bit mess. So it sat in my drawer for quite some time. And then I wanted kind of a mindless project to do, so that's why I called them mindful, mindless socks, because they're kind of knitting where I just kind of, with knitting the tube, I could get into a nice mindful state. But then mindless because I didn't have to think about what I'm doing with the heels or the toes until I got to the end. So it was a really nice project to do. I'll probably do some more because I think it's a really nice bit of knitting for when you're out and about or when you're chatting to someone. So yep, that's off the needles. But yeah, probably going back on the needles, I think. Okay, another one off the needles is my multiple shawls. Now, this is the really not really. I did 1, 2, 3, 4 shawls this weekend, and you can see how I did them. They're tiny, they're mini shawls. So these I did as a experiment to just kind of play around with different shawl shapes. So I've got a little book called Fill in the Blanks Shawl Making. It's a little 8-page pamphlet, and it gives you some calculations and flowcharts and things to do different shapes of shawls. So I did the full square, so it's actually a full square but with a slit in it, so it kind of goes across the shoulders like that. And it's kind of a modern take on a Scottish hat, which is a full square which you'd then fold to put over your shoulders. But this one lies over your shoulders, so you're not getting that double thickness at the back. So it's made up of 4 triangles, and I think this is a really pleasing shape, and I think this one might well be my next shawl design, because I want to do kind of a traditional Shetland pattern but with a modern shape so that it wears nicely. Don't need a shawl pin to keep it on. It's I think this is a much more modern shape, but you can still do kind of the old-fashioned, the traditional Shetland styles, which has kind of a plain or fairly plain pattern centre, thick border, and then what's called a lace around the edges. There's some really beautiful things. I think that's probably my next project. So I'm glad I did these because this was advertised as the circular shawl, and I assumed it was going to be a full circle, again with a slit in it. But as you see, it's not quite. It's more of a Pac-Man shape. But again, it's 4 triangles, and I think this would be very easy to make into a full circle with a fifth. I did wonder if the fact that I'd done it in garter stitch made a difference, so I did do a stocking stitch version, which I haven't blocked, so it's a bit hard to see what shape it is. I'm actually just going to pin it out now and see what the difference is. So this is exactly the same as the previous one, the garter stitch one, but just done in stocking stitch. But yeah, I think with blocking, both of them could be kind of teased more into a circular shape. Because it depends on the stitch patterns that you use and how lacy it is. That's the thing with lace, you can block it quite aggressively and you can get a different shape. Might do a special stream on blocking actually, because I think there's a lot to blocking that scares some people, and so they don't do it. And I think it really does make your knits quite special. It's kind of like it's like restaurant presentation food is different to food you cook at home. Unless you take a lot of care in the presentation, I generally just slap it in a plate. But yeah, I think if I was doing a circular shawl like this, I'd put another triangle on. Although this is quite a nice shape in itself. I suppose it would hug, when it's 3D, I suppose it does hug the shoulders quite well. What I need is I need a Barbie doll now to model these. So that was that one. And the final one I did was actually me experimenting with a triangle construction. So for a triangular top-down shawl, you generally do similar to this. Get the square one. So a triangle top-down shawl would actually look like half the square one, kind of like that, top down. So that would be the top of the shawl, and you start from there with a very small number of stitches, and you increase across these two triangles. And I kind of thought, what happens if instead of increasing 4 stitches every 2 rows, what if you increase 2 stitches on every row at the ends? So you kind of get rid of this line. Would it still block into that triangle shape? So this is an experiment. So this is as it comes off the needles. That's kind of in the same orientation as that. So no is the first answer. No, you get the triangle sloping things at the top. But it might block. And again, depending on the yarn and the pattern, could kind of coax it. Coax it into this kind of angled shape. So what that would do is kind of give a more plain background for stitch patterns. So instead of having the two triangles with the line in between, you could have kind of a more centralized stitch pattern. I don't think this is the right way to do it though. I've seen other shawl shapes, and so maybe a side to side shawl would work better for something like that, where you wanted the central design, or a bottom up shawl design, which I think you could do differently. So more experimentation for that shape, I think. I had a lot of fun experimenting. I think something I've found with starting to design shawls. So I've designed one shawl, so I'm now a designer. Is you have to do something. You have to have an idea first of all, and then you've got to see if it works. And I think this kind of small swatching and kind of doing your ideas like that is quite a good thing to do. Actually, I've just, even without blocking this, I've just pinned it out and unpinned it, and it is actually keeping its shape. So maybe that is a thing, but I suppose once it loses its shape, then it's going to spring back to that. So yeah, back to the drawing board for that one. Right, on with some knitting. What am I doing? I am doing, put my pins away before I put my elbow on. I'm carrying on. This is now the 3rd out of 4 stranded triangles, so hopefully I've got something else to show you next week. So this is the Arabesque Knittalong. So it's a knit-along by Manos del Uruguay Yarns. This is one I made earlier. It really is a really nice pattern. So it's got kind of the blue small waves at the bottom, the middle, and there's a top which you can't really see, but I'm glad it's there. And then two of these big waves in the pink, which give it a nice pattern. If we've got the picture, I do. So this is the Knittalong pattern picture. This is the warm colourway. I'm using the cool colourway, which is that one there, which I think is going to look lovely with my living room. I love Manosdale Uruguay yarns. It's the first time I've used them. I got it from Laughing Hens Yarn. They're a kit partner. And I've got an affiliate link up there, so if you want to get involved with the Knittalong, that's where you can get it, and I get a bit of some commission from that. There's a lovely Knittalong group on Facebook, and we've been helping each other because it does claim it's quite an easy knit. It says if you can knit and purl, you can do it, but we've been finding that there's a bit more to it than that. It's a challenge, I'd say, but I think if you like a challenge, then go for it. My screen, right? I'm gonna show you. I'm using Knit Companion, and I'm going to show you a bit on the screen because some people have been wanting to use Knit Companion and aren't quite sure what to do. So I'm just using the very basic versions of it. This is on Android. I do know that the iPhone or iPad iOS version is more complex than the Android version, and I miss it. I used to have an iPod Touch, and I think part of the reason I got an iPod Touch was because I wanted to use Knit Companion. And it's one of those where if you get it set up, it takes quite a lot of work to set up a pattern, but once it's there, it kind of goes through all the you can have linked counters, or things like repeat this row 4 times and then that bit, and then at the same time decrease for your armholes and things like that. So it's really good for that kind of pattern. However, I found the paid version for Android wasn't quite worth the setup, so I'm just using the free version. And what I've done is I've uploaded the PDF, so it works on PDF files. It can connect to Ravelry and Dropbox, but you can also upload things just from your phone or your tablet. And so all I'm using is the movable row marker. You can alter the size of this, but only in the paid version, and you can alter the colour of it again, but only in the paid version. And I'm using this slider to keep track of which stitch I'm on, and I'm also using you can see it, the row counter in the bottom corner. I've got this set up mostly on my phone because that's what I'm using most of the time. I've got it on my tablet as well because I'm using my phone for the camera for recording this. So I'm just going to knit and chat. Some people have been having a bit of a problem with this pattern because it's charted only for this colourwork section. And some people prefer a written out pattern. If you join us on the Knittalong group, then someone in the group called Lisa has very kindly, she's written out the pattern for this bit and has very kindly offered to send that to people on the Knittalong group. So do join us there if you prefer a knitted version, a written version. So one of those things, I've never really had a problem reading lace charts. They go into my brain quite easily, and I can remember what's going on. And it's same with cross stitch, but I can quite easily follow a cross stitch chart. But knitted colourwork charts, I can't really do anything other than follow them kind of stitch by stitch. So what I do is I'll remember the next two groups of colours. So for example, this next bit I'm on 4 then 3. So I kind of have in my brain 4, 1, 2, 4, and then 3. 3. And I think unless it's a very simple repeat, for example, like 4, 3 across the row, then I have to use a pattern. I can't remember more than like 2 or 3 blocks. So now this next one is 4 ones or 4 singles. So that's 1, 3, 4, and then I move up the stitch marker thing on my tablet rather, Android. That's 2, 2, 2, 2. No, 2, 2, 2. So 4 twos. There we go. It's one of those weird ones that, because I generally find working from a chart quite simple, it never occurred to me that other people wouldn't find it straightforward. I think it's like some maths teachers, for example, just as an example from school, if they're good at maths, they're not always the best at then teaching maths because they don't know how to actually do it because it's obvious to them. So in my kind of trying to teach people, I always try and work out, is this a good way of teaching it? Or is it just that I know how to do it? So I think with charts, it's, for some people, I think it's just going to click, and then for other people, it's not. So one thing you can do is actually try and write out your own written instructions. If you just do it for 1 or 2 rows, then maybe that would help. Let me know if it does, because as I say, I don't actually know how to teach how to use charts. I think one of the things that is tricky with charts, especially with one where it's done on both sides on straight knitting like this one, is that sometimes you're reading it from right to left and sometimes you're reading it from left to right. And so the chart looks all right on paper, that's what the image will look like, but you're using it from the back of the knitting. So for example, I'm looking at the back of the knitting here. I'm knitting from right to left, and I'm reading the pattern from left to right. And so unless that clicks for you, then that can be very tricky. Especially if there are increases and decreases, it depends on how the chart is written as to whether they're the right way around. I once tried and failed to knit a lace shawl called Rhodian. It's by Romy Hill, and it's on knitty.com. If you're not aware of knitty.com, by the way, do check them out because they've got loads of free patterns. They're basically how I started knitting. They've been there for quite some years now. Knitty, KNITTY.com, and they have a difficulty range from I can't remember what it is, but instead of like simple and stuff, they've got kind of like tangy and super spicy. And super spicy is their most difficult one, and Rhodian is super spicy, and I think they need another difficulty level above that because it is hard. It's a lovely pattern. It's beautiful. One day I might try it again. Now I'm a lot more confident with lace knitting. It's got Estonian lace stitches, which include loops, which involve basically increasing loads into one stitch and then knitting them all back together to make a kind of bobble. And when I tried it, I think I was using yarn that wasn't very elastic, and so it was really tricky to do that. I've since done a craftsy course where I did loops, and it was easier because I was using a bigger wool, and it was a lot more elastic as well, so that helped. But also the shawl Rhodian had lace stitches on both sides of the work. So most lace is kind of you knit the pattern on the front, so there's lots of kind of decreases and yarn overs and other lace stitches, and then you generally work a plain row backwards, so purl or knit if it's a cross stitch. With Rhodian and with a few more complex shawls as well, lace patterns, it's lace on both sides, so you've got yarn overs on both sides and lots of shaping, well not shaping, but lots of lace work, and it's really difficult to keep track because if you're used to reading a chart from left to right for lace, and then all of a sudden you've got all these symbols that mean something different because you do them from the back, then it's quite the headache. And now I'm talking about it, I'm actually thinking, I want to do this again. Maybe one day. I've got lots of things in my brain that I want to get out onto needles, which is great. I spent quite a bit of lockdown and the pandemic not having much knitting mojo, not having much crafting mojo at all. I went on a weaving course just before lockdown, so that would have been February 2020, and I got the weaving bug. I borrowed a loom from one of my friends, and it's still stuck there with the project half done, because I think a lot of people in the pandemic, we just crashed and burned. Just life and surviving took a lot of our creative processes, and it's nice to have that back. Right, I'm at the end. Now I get to show you a new thing that I learned from Lisa in the Arabesque Knittalong group. She messaged me after last stream because I mentioned that I find knit two together really tricky. I'll show you not a knit two together, a purl two together through the back loop, which looks a bit like this. Out of the way. Right, got the yarn, got the stitches, and what we need to do is purl through the back loop, and so you have to put the right hand needle through the stitches through the back loop from left to right, so you kind of have to come up behind and in through there. And it's not too bad, I found, once you've got a bit of work to pull down on so you can get that hole. But if you've only started, then you kind of just but Lisa taught me a new way, which is slip both stitches onto the right hand needle, turn the work, and then knit those two together. If it was back through the back loop, you can do it through the back loop, and if it was not through the back loop, you do it through the front loop. So this was a purl through the back loop, so we knit through the back loop like that, and then flip that stitch back on there. Now it looks the same as purl through together. I checked. So this only works when it's purl two together at the end of the row. but it can leave it a bit neater because you're not pulling those stitches out of shape. So that is another one in your arsenal, that if you find it too tricky to do a purl two together through the back loop, then you can do this instead. I'm going to do that again, actually. I'll show you again. So we've got our 2 end stitches that need purling through the back loop. Oops, this should be on that needle. Right, that's how it looks when you come to them. What you do is you slip them both the right hand needle, otherwise, turn the work, and knit through the back loop, and then remember to slip that stitch back on there because that's actually from the other. That's from the row before. Then you're ready to start your next row. That I quite like. I did it, like I say, at the first, and it was so much easier. So thank you very much, Lisa, for sending me that tip. I'm actually going to pause on that one now, because that's what I wanted to show you this time, and because I forgot to charge my tablet. Well, that's all my patterns are all away because the battery's out. It's on about 10%, so you know, I timed that quite well. Okay. The next thing I'm working on at the moment is the Helsinki Pattern from Free Spirit Shawls. There you go. Now, there we go. So this is Free Spirit Shawls. Book I got from the library. I love libraries. Support your local library. And the pattern I'm doing from it is Helsinki by Maura Kirk. So this is one I wanted to do because it's not what I normally do. It's a change. So I normally do lacy shawls. I've done a few cable shawls, Celtic cable shawls. I hardly ever do kind of what I call plain shawls. So this is kind of a plain shawl, but it's not plain at all, is it? It's nice and bold. It's very simple. Knit-wise, it's a 6-row pattern repeat called Beehive Stitch, and you just swap colours every so often. So it's a unisex design, and I think I want to encourage more than just femme presenting people to wear shawls. I think shawls are amazing, and if you want to see some mask presenting and non-femme presenting people wearing shawls, then check out Stephen West stuff, because he designs some very eclectic shawls. I keep looking at them thinking I'd love to knit them, but then I don't think I'd wear them. But they're wonderful, some of them. They're great. He really enjoys playing with colour and different shapes. So anyway, this is Helsinki by Maura Kirk, and I've done half of it. So this is the yarn I got from Laughing Hens again, that I bought that I opened last week. This is Regia Premium Merino Yak 4-ply, and I've got it in 2 colours, which I can't remember what they're called. I think it's honeycomb and plum. They've only got the colour numbers on the yarn labels. It's a bit brighter than it looks on this screen. Getting the colours here is let me see if I can some light onto that and bring it out. It's kind of a nice gold colour and a nice kind of aubergine burgundy. So this is kind of the half of it, and now what I need to do is pick up stitches along this side so that I can knit that other half of the shawl. So they will have vertical stripes. Right, with right side facing and main colour, pick up a knit. So, picking up stitches. There's two kinds kind of picking up stitches. One which I find is alright, and two I don't particularly like. And this is the one I don't particularly like. It's something like a sock heel, and if you do like a gusset and then pick up stitches around it, then you're generally picking up one stitch for each stitch on the, or each row in the already knitted stuff, so you can easily tell where to pick things up. It's all nicely laid out and you one to one, and it kind of like you can get into the zone. It's kind of like a halfway house between knitting and crochet, and that's lovely. You can do that whilst watching telly. It's great. However, with this, I need to pick up 80 stitches evenly across, and there's more than 80 stitches. Are there 160 stitches? That would be nice. So you kind of have to do a bit of maths and a bit of working out or measuring. Right, so we've got each one of these big stripes is 12 stitches, 12 rows, and I've got a cast off row, that full 12, not quite. So it's about 12 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 13. It's about 12 times 13 stitches per row, which doesn't sound very even. I get a calculator out. 144. I nearly worked it out actually. 147, isn't it? Right. 13 times 12. 156. I was wrong. I'm glad I used a calculator. Notebook. Alright, 156 divided by 80 equals 1.95. So that's not far off actually. Picking up one every 2 stitches. And then every so often missing a stitch, I think. Yeah. That's not too bad. So what I generally do for picking up stitches across a thing is, first of all, I use some stitch markers. I've got these lovely wireless safety pins. These are the stitch markers I use all the time now. I've got about 3 sets of them. They're lovely. So what I do is I knock my camera, right? What I do is first of all I find the halfway point in that. That should be about there. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and halfway through the 6. Yeah, that's the halfway point. And then pin the quarters. I'm just can't keep patting my head on that. So I'm going to count the half straps now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, that's not quite right. $13. So half of 13, 6.5. You bet there. Half So in each quarter, I'm going to need 20 stitches. I'm going to actually pin 8 as well, so um, okay. I can start knitting. I can start picking up stitches. So tip for picking up stitches is you might want to use a needle size one smaller. I left mine downstairs, so I'm just going to do it with this. Got my main colour. And so for the Arabesque Knittalong, those stranded triangles, there's 2 alternatives in the pattern. One, you can do what I've done, which is do them separately, or you can pick up stitches from that main square that we knit first. Here actually, the main square with the I cords, and you can pick up stitches from the edge of that and then knit straight onto that with a stranded triangle. The reason I've not done that is because I didn't really want to be carrying around all that blanket on my lap at once. Ooh, picking up stitches might have been easier. I don't know if I wove an ends in first. I want to get one first of all into the corner. So where am I going to pick up? Zoom in, see if we can. This is kind of like working out where to do sewing up when you're doing mattress stitch. So we've got, alright, there we go. So I need to look at this edge and try and work out a line. It actually doesn't matter so much as long as you're consistent. So if you pick up like half a stitch in from the edge, that'll be fine. If you pick up 1 stitch in from the edge, that'll be fine. But as long as you're consistent, then it'll leave a nice edge. I think it's a bit clearer to see on the KAL yarn. I'm just gonna have a look at that, see where I can pick up stitches. Yeah, I think that kind of first half stitch line. So just between the first purl bump, those ones on the edge, so I'll kind of pick up there. This is where I wish I'd done a slip stitch edge, because then it would have been easier to see. A bit so you can see what I'm doing. Right, so starting in the corner, half a stitch in. Might be a bit awkward, that first one. The end of my yarn. I think I'll weave in later. And once we've pushed our needle in, front to back, we just pull up a yarn. Easier said than done. Yep, I find that really tricky. So what I do quite often with picking up stitches, if I can't do it like that, I actually put it onto another needle. So I use it like a knitting stitch. So push that onto there. Front to back with my left needle, and then knit that as if it's just a normal stitch. You might need to use just the tips of your needle because you don't want to push it too far and everything at the tip. This is where I might want some smaller needles. I want to 10 stitches before I get to there, and it was about one of those. I've got to remember that this is reverse stocking and not garter, so double are one and not 2 rows. It's kind of more of an art than a science, this. I think that's what annoys me. I want everything to match perfectly. I want my stitches and my rows to be perfectly aligned, and not with this. This one. What we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Okay. There I've got 8, and I needed 10 by the marker, so I need to actually do another couple in there. I think there's a gap there, so I'm going to do those 5. And again, a bit closer. Yeah, that's the gap. I've got on the thing. I'm going to leave that in. Come across the line. I'm going to make sure I don't too far in. All on this bit. 5, 8. Excellent. So I've got 20 before that quarter mark. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to unpin that 8. Do the next one. In. So again, I need 10 before the next marker. Oh, that's how it has come out before it. Okay. 1. Oh, cool. I can grab it now. I don't need a second needle. 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. Yeah, there. 10 before the mark there, but I think I'm alright. And then 3, 4, take some markers out and put them in the next bit. Leapfrog them over. Oh, cool! I'm halfway there. It's not too bad. Oh crap! Boost it. Right there. 2, 6, 7, 8, 10. One before the thing there. Marker. 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 3/4 done. On. Seven, 8, 10. One, 2, 4, 6, 7. Like it's gonna be close. Lost count. 5, 4, 5. Now we'll just count them before I start knitting. 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80. Yes! Right first time. Brilliant. You see on the underside, that's left a nice line of the main colour. That'll leave a little seam, and that'll be quite nice and unobtrusive. Unobtrusive, even. Get my pins out. I'll probably knit one more row and then end of the stream, I think. I'm quite fast today. Get my pattern. I can do a knit row. So yes, I hope you've enjoyed the stream or the catch-up video, wherever you've joined me from. You can check me out on Facebook. My links are at the bottom of the screen, and they're also on my profile. I'm Gemma, but username in a lot of places is Very Nice Knits. I have a Etsy shop, which this will be going into once I've finished it. And I'm on Ravelry as Gemlad. That's GEMLAD. Feel free to follow me on Ravelry, Facebook. Take a look in the Arabesque Knittalong group if you're interested in knitting the Arabesque shawl, which I'm not affiliated with, by the way. I'm just really enjoying it. And I hope to see you next time. Thank you for watching. There we go. A nice neat back and the start of the front. Right, see you next week.